Hello guys, if you have a database structure which is unclear yet and you envision more columns added in the future but you don't know which columns. A typical example is an eShop with some properties for the products and they need to be flexible. What database structure to choose? I have written an article on LaravelDaily.com with these three options discussed and also benchmark the performance, and I decided to shoot a video version here. So imagine three options and I've created all of them in one database. So JSON column for the properties, also separate fields, some of them nullable, and then you would add more fields as more properties appear. And then the third option is to have a pivot table product property with the value and properties separately in the database separate table, which is basically called EAV model, entity attribute value model from what I remember. So let's compare those. I've seeded some data, not too much, so 1,000 products with random combinations of those values. And then in my Tinkerwell, I've launched the benchmark for querying the product by a few filters. So for example, you need products with size L and color red. If you have a JSON field, it is very convenient to query. If you have just regular fields in the database, they are even easier to query. But if you have EAV model with the relationships, then it gets a bit more complicated, the query. And I'm launching that with Laravel benchmark functionality, which allows you in the array compare three functions, and the number 5 means launch that 5 times. And let's do exactly that in Tinkerwell. And what is the result? So let's see, 28 milliseconds for the EAV model, 5 milliseconds for JSON, and of course the fastest is just query the fields. Let's launch it once again, maybe some caching or something. Yeah, it is a bit different. Let's launch it again to make sure. Again, a few more times. This is interesting. So those numbers for 1 and 2 seem to jump. Which one is faster? So it seems like JSON is as fast as querying the fields in that situation, in that simple database structure with just 1,000 products. But a clear loser in terms of performance here is this, whereas with the flexible model. Now, of course, every benchmark is a little bit biased, so probably in your situations, in your product's structure, the benchmark result could be a bit different, but this is just an example for you to think about. And from that, what could be the takeaways? So you need to choose whether you go for flexibility or for performance. For smaller amounts of data, for example, if I try to do that for LaravelDaily.com for the articles, I know there will be only like 1,000 articles or a few thousand articles ever in my lifetime. So I could go for flexible properties and then ignore a bit of performance, because 13 milliseconds or 2 milliseconds, the users would not actually feel that in the browser, that difference. The JSON thing, it seems okay until it becomes more complicated. I've read by other people online and on Laracast forum quite a few articles where JSON fields are really hard to query. So this is very easy to query the size and the color. But if you have JSON with a few levels, for example, or you need to do like where JSON contains something, it may be much slower. And then the third, kind of a silly option to just add more columns. It seems like not a real developer example because we all go for flexibility and maintainability. But in fact, in real life, multiple times I've seen clients going, we need to be flexible, I need to add more fields and columns and something. And guess what? They rarely use that at all. So often developers over-engineer and try to come up with complex system, although in fact, in all the life cycle of the project, they would ever need to add 2 more fields, which they can do manually when it's needed. So in some cases, it's better not to overcomplicate the project. And if you do feel that more columns are added or needed constantly, then you refactor that into JSON or EAV model. What do you think? What is your expertise and experience on those options? Have you ever burned yourself by choosing the wrong approach and then you had to refactor or optimize? Share your stories in the comments. And if you care about performance in general, eloquent performance, I can suggest my separate course, which is, if we scroll down, Better Eloquent Performance. Inside of that, I show a lot of queries, optimized and non-optimized. That course is a part of membership on Laravel Daily.com, so subscribe to yearly or monthly membership to get all of the courses, including that Eloquent Performance one. And see you guys in other videos.